lot of growth for me just as a business owner since however long it was in the past year. But we experimented a lot with the business as far as the operational side, looking at different metrics, trying different categories, exploring wholesale, and doing what our long-term goal is, which is growing the private label.
When it says retailer, it would mean seller, right? Not necessarily actual place. It's like I could sell a product anywhere.
It would be the
Cheers.
cheers.
Welcome back to the Doughboys podcast. I'm your host, Logan, joined by my lovely, studly co-host, Flipping It with Cisco. Today, we're also joined by a special guest who was also our first ever guest on the podcast about a year ago, filled by Amazon. He's been selling on Amazon for 4 years now. He has done just about everything: books, retail, online arbitrage, wholesale, and what we're going to be talking about a lot tonight, which is private label. He's also a stand-up guy. He's standing up right now, so you can know how tall he is. And he's a stand-up comedian.
Awesome.
Phil, we're so excited to have you here. How you doing?
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be back. Happy to bring the party to the Doughboys. So,
hey, party up in here. This is also the first
Absolutely.
time we're all back together recording this year. So this is probably going to come out for another
It's
like
true.
week or 2 or 3, but this is the first official time we're all together 2024. So cheers to that, boys.
24, whole new year.
Did I say
Glad I could get
2023?
yours.
2024.
the band's back together.
It's the only way we
So
could
Phil,
do it.
it's been a while since you were on the podcast. Could you kind of give us an update? What you've been up to this last year and how your business has developed.
Yeah, so it's actually been a lot of growth for me just as a business owner since however long it was in the past year. But yeah, we experimented a lot with the business as far as the operational side, looking at different metrics, trying different categories, exploring wholesale, and doing what our long-term goal is, which is growing the private label company that we also operate. And so this last year was a big learning experience for me personally, and just operating the business outside of what a lot of people get into when they get into selling on Amazon, which is just a lot of hustle, a lot of daily grinding. And so like focusing more on the metrics, operating smarter, and outsourcing work were really big things that we worked on 2023.
Sweet. And why did you say that you want to focus on growing private label long term?
So for me, private label, there's a number of advantages that I feel private label has over all other models. The first one being that my return on my time investment is much greater than any other model that I've worked with on Amazon, and so I can put a lot of work on the front end of developing a product, sourcing products, creating listings, all of that stuff. But on the back end, once the product is launched, the work is so minimal that's the biggest draw for me. And then the other side, which is what draws a lot of people into private label, is the fact of growing a scalable asset that potentially you could exit and sell. That I don't believe is really possible with any of the other models. And I know people will debate on some of those things, but for me, those are the two biggest things. Just really getting the time investment back and being able to scale something where it's not as much of a daily grind.
Yeah. You also mentioned metrics. So what metrics would you say are most important in your private label business, and how would that differ from maybe another business model on Amazon?
Yeah, so the one big difference that is the primary focus in private label, obviously sales is always going to be king no matter what model you're doing. So sales is definitely important, but for me the biggest metrics are ranking in terms of the keywords that we're using in our listing for our product, and the advertising side of it. With PPC, because online arbitrage, retail arbitrage, whatever arbitrage you're doing, even wholesale, generally you're going to do limited advertising campaigns, and they're not going to be too complex. So for me, that is actually where I spend most of the time in the private label business with a product that's launched, is just monitoring the PPC side of it for advertising, just to watch where we're ranking on our keywords, because as you rank in your keywords, then you're doing the end result, which is generating sales. So it's a little bit different in, arbitrage. If you're using online arbitrage, you're measuring the metrics of, what am I sourcing today? How fast am I getting it to Amazon? Uh, you know, how quickly is it selling, and can I replenish it? Can I get it for the same cost? Private label, you don't really focus on those metrics as much.
So a lot of our audience is, coming from the world of arbitrage, maybe dabbling in wholesale, but I would say not many of them are doing private label. So we've kind of already got into it a little bit, but could we back up and first, for anyone who's wondering, could you explain what the heck private label even is?
Yeah, so private label is essentially, uh, bringing to market, or bringing to Amazon, because that's the platform we're primarily talking about, bringing to market a product that you are working with a manufacturer to produce. You are branding it under your own brand, whether that's a company or just the brand name that you're launching a product under. And so you're not all the difference in the I guess the misconception sometimes with private label is that you're bringing something that doesn't exist at all. Like you're manufacturing new molds. You're just almost like you're being an inventor. But in all reality, what you're doing is you're bringing something to market that there already is a market for, and you see a gap in the market, whatever that may look like, whether it's an accessory that's missing, it's a color variation that doesn't exist, it's some features that, aren't on current products, and you're bringing those features to the market. And so, but you're doing it under your own brand. And so that's kind of the labeling part of private label, is you're labeling the product with your own brand.
Are you familiar with the term white label?
Yes.
And if okay, do you know what the difference is? Because I always get them confused.
So white labeling, and I'm probably not as familiar. I mean, I'm familiar with it, but white labeling, from my understanding, is more or less your, it's almost like a whole. And I could, someone might be watching this, be like, that guy is completely wrong. He's an idiot. But my understanding is, like, what I've seen from white labeling is, things like supplements, beauty products, where somebody is, uh, manufacturing on a wholesale basis, and you're literally just slapping your logo on it. And so, if
Okay.
that's my
That's
correct
exactly what it is.
understanding, if that's my correct understanding, it's a little bit different from private label. And the thing is, a lot of
Yeah.
a lot of people treat private label that with that methodology, and that's why a
Mhm.
lot of people fail in private label.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I thought it was too. And I'm going to give an example of Alpha Candles. So right now we do private label candles for other companies. For example, we worked with our brewery. They have a custom Opera House brewery candle. It's a custom scent butterscotch bourbon. So I think that would be more private label. But if we were to offer butterscotch bourbon to hundreds of breweries and all of them could just put their logo on it, and that's the only
Yeah.
differentiation, that would be more of white label, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
All right, so here's the
And
difference.
then
So I just did a quick Google, so that way we can all be right and nobody's coming after us in the comments. Although not enough people comment, so if you're listening to this, go ahead and comment something in there for us. If negative, good, positive, doesn't matter. But so white label, where to leave here? The difference is the white label. The products are generic and sold at multiple retailers who then brand and price the product based on their niche market. A private label product is exclusively sold at one retailer. So if your product is only being sold on Amazon's platform, then yes, it's technically private label. Alpha Candles in this case, because it's sold in your store, your physical store, and it's sold on your website, and it's sold on Amazon's platform, it would be considered white label per Google.
But would that mean when it says retailer, it would mean seller, right? Not necessarily actual place.
Mm,
It's like
It
I could
it
sell
would be,
tomato,
product
yeah,
tomato.
anywhere.
it would be the seller, I would believe.
Yeah,
Yeah, it would have to be.
that makes more
Yeah.
sense. But you guys are the big brains. I just, read definitions off Google.
Let's just ask Chat GPT
Mm,
later. That'll answer all our
mm.
questions.
That's right. Just so everyone knows, also Phil is using ChatGPT for his responses today.
I already did it on ChatGPT. I'll read it back to you if you want. But
He's cheating.
it I'm
Yeah,
AI.
yeah, yeah. Synthesized Phil over here.
Yeah, but what Logan, what you're saying is correct. In the fact that it's you can sell something that's being mass produced as a generic product to other retailers who then add their own branding to it, like I think you said bourbon scotch.
All right, so my question kind of brings it further back to where Logan and I met you, Phil, right? So we met you through Rizzy's Discord, right? You're
Yeah.
the special Ninja Turtle that didn't want to show your face on your profile picture, but you were
Oh.
posting all the good successes on there. So then I remember reaching out to you, and I don't know how I remember this very specifically, but when I reached out to you, I asked you how your day was and what are you up to, and you took a picture and sent it to me of you working on your garden. I think your front garden.
Oh,
You were
okay.
like you were realigning the bricks.
That's
I guess you just
probably
got from
doing,
Home
yeah.
Depot.
I did a retaining wall. Wow. Okay. I don't even remember that.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So this was like 2.5 ish years ago. And then I remember my question to you was, okay, what credit card are you using? And then you said none. And I was just like confused. And you said,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm all cash, man. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, true. I wish I
Yeah.
was too. But I guess that leads into my question. Do you use credit cards now? And because you started off
Yeah.
doing arbitrage, how much of a safety net did you save up to until you launched your first private label product?
Um, so I started. Answer your first question. I do currently use credit cards because you taught me the error of my ways, um, and that's what has allowed me to take some trips. Is those credit card points that I was not accumulating
Let's
before. But
go. Take some breaks. We all need those memories with our kids, especially your kids that are this ripe age. Let's go.
oh, I've taken trips without my kids. I mean, I didn't know what I was supposed to do with my kids.
That's even
So,
better. Let's go. Adulting for
um,
real.
yeah. So I do use credit cards currently. But to answer your second question, I launched our first product with around $5,000, maybe just a little bit less, but that was essentially cash that I had stored away. I was going to use it to get into selling bulk books, and we ended up doing private label instead.
A
What did
better
most of
choice.
that $5,000 go towards?
Around 3,500 went towards the actual product, and then the other 15-ish hundred went towards paying for photography and copywriting.
Not much advertising spend.
I'll say this: chat. Speaking about Chat GPT is actually getting really good as far as possibly eliminating the needs for copywriting agencies. Um, but there wasn't really a thing 3 years ago, so um, I don't have a background in writing copy that converts to sales, so I outsource it. I also don't have much photography experience other than taking pictures of my food and not posting them to Instagram. But um, so that's why I outsourced and invested into that. But as far as the advertising, I don't budget any money outside of my existing profit margin for advertising. All of my advertising money comes from the margin that I've already built in. So that way, I'm not going out of pocket with money.
And when you mean by advertising, you mean more so PPC, right?
PPC.
Or
Yep.
got it, got it.
Yep.
And so I'm sure obviously you didn't get everything right the first go around with your first product, but what would you say were the first major lessons that you learned launch mistakes that you made launching your first private label product?
So knock on wood, our all the products that we have actually worked out well for us. We've not had a failed product yet, but um, there's there's definitely been a lot of lessons I've learned. PPC is really the biggest beast to tackle and understand, and so that's one thing. It's still an ongoing. That's the one, like I said, it's the one area of the business that I actually work on every week, and it's a constant learning because you're finding the keywords that are doing well, and it's monitoring the spend that you're putting towards those specific keywords. And then every week we're finding different search terms that customers are using that are leading to sales. And so then it's a matter of starting to advertise on those type of keywords and testing that. So for me, and every product has the learning curve has always been with PPC.
I want to take a quick moment to interrupt the podcast and talk about this video's sponsor, OA Alphas. OA Alphas offers high quality leads lists to help you grow and scale your online arbitrage business. Whenever I started getting into online arbitrage, leads lists were foundational for helping me understand the OA business and growing my business to its height. OA Alphas allows you to get profitable online arbitrage product leads every single day, Monday through Friday, in exchange for a set monthly fee. If you're looking to grow your online arbitrage business or gain back some of your time or learn more about OA, then I highly recommend you check out the link down below to visit oaalphas.com and start receiving those profitable leads every single day. Thank you, OA Alphas, for sponsoring this episode.
So there's a lot of research that I do on the front end in terms of will this product likely succeed? Is there a market for it? Is there a niche? Is there a niche and a need for this? And so far, I've been able to check all of those boxes successfully. But on the backside of launching it, PPC is the biggest challenge.
Nice.
Pay per click. Yep. So
Where you literally pay for everyone to click on your product.
yeah. So Amazon, its entire platform is search based. So, if you're looking even for Nike socks, you got to type in something to get you to what you want to see. And so when you're bringing a product to Amazon's platform that doesn't have, a brand presence outside of Amazon or a national brand presence, period, you have to drive customers towards your product based on the search terms that they were probably using. And the way you do that is you pay per the click, or pay per search, I guess is a different way of looking at it, but same thing.
ACOS. How do you pronounce that?
ACOS.
ACOS. All right. I thought so,
Yeah.
but I didn't want to sound stupid.
ACOS.
ACOS.
Yep.
What is your target ACOS, if that even exists?
Yeah. So
What is ACOS? Yeah, slow down.
So
We got a high school
ACOS.
diploma over here.
So ACOS is another acronym, and it stands for Advertise Cost of Sale. So what you're measuring is, and this is a term that's within the PPC environment. So what you're measuring by your ACOS is you're measuring the amount of revenue that you're generating against how much advertising spend you had to have to get to that revenue. So an example is if you have $100 in gross sales, but you had to spend $10 in order to get that $100 in sales, then your ACOS is 10%. And your ACOS, in my opinion, that's really the North Star of how profitable your product is. And there's not really, I mean, in a broad sense, what's a good target ACOS? As low as you can get is the perfect answer. But really, your target ACOS is going to be based off of what's your starting profit margin. So, considering your landed cost, what does it cost to actually manufacture the product, combined with what does it cost to actually ship those goods to to Amazon, basically to get it here. And so your landed cost against your selling price is going to give you your actual net margin. So for me, I like to start with, after my landed costs, I like to start with a 30% net margin. And so for me, that if it's 30%, then my target ACOS is going to be 30%, because that means that 30%, I'm not making money, but I'm not losing money. And so I start with that 30% as my target ACOS. And then every week we're trying to lower that to make our product more profitable. But in all reality, what we're really trying to do is we're trying to rise in the ranking for our various keywords. And as we rise in the ranking, we are not going to have to spend as much in advertising, because more eyeballs are getting on our products outside of just a sponsored placement on a search page. It can get like nitty gritty when you talk about PPC, but in all reality, what you're just measuring is how much do I have to spend to generate sales, and you want to spend the least amount as you can.
Do you believe ACOS can ever be too low?
No, if you're generating sales, no.
The reason I ask, I could see maybe like if it's really low, perhaps you're not testing enough. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I guess I could see that point. I think it also depends what you're starting with. So, um, if you're starting with, let's say 5 keywords and that's it. That's not really enough of a that's not enough of a broad array to really try to get eyeballs on your products, even if they're the absolute most relevant keywords to your product. So, I'll give you an example. Uh, One thing that I've been talking to some people about as an example is there's a couple listings that are taco holder kits. So like you've seen like those little like W-shaped metal trays that you can put tacos in, right? So there's some listings that are like that.
They're awesome.
It's a taco holder kit. Well, um, you know, the main keyword is going to be like taco holder. You may use Taco Tuesday. You may use
Taco
taco
tray.
stand, taco tray. Well, if those are just the 4 or 5 keywords that you're targeting, you're missing out a lot of people who might be looking for home taco kits or gifts for
Mm,
Mexican food lovers, or you know, there's a whole array of other keywords that may be out there. So if you're if you're only advertising on a limited amount, yeah, your ACOS could be too low, but on the reverse side, that means you are generating sales if you have a low ACOS. And so you may not be advertising enough, like you said, but with a low ACOS, you're doing well profitably. Yeah. Yeah. So here's the other difference that, um, the one thing with private label is a lot of people that you hear you see post or hear talk about, I'm launching a private label brand or I'm getting into private label because whatever reason. A lot of times the reason is because they're not doing good currently in the model that they're operating, whether it's arbitrage or wholesale, whatever. And so they think that getting into private label is going to allow them to really build this asset, build this brand, sell this company for, 7, 8, 9 figures, whatever. And they're approaching it simply from a monetary standpoint as their focus primarily. In all reality, to do well in private label, your focus needs to be on your rankings. So the way I look at it is if I launch a product, my goal at the beginning is not, and this sounds really backwards, right? My goal at the beginning is not to make money. My goal is to simply get my product to the top of the search page for as many of my relevant keywords. Because if I can do that, I'm going to generate sales. And it may take me a big boost in advertising spend to get there initially. But once I'm on the top of those search results, then I can lower or, you know, bring down my advertising spend significantly. And now I'm where I want to be, which is in front of the eyeballs on page one. And I'm not having to spend money to be there because I've already got there. And then long term, I can focus on profitability. And a lot of people get it backwards and they think right out of the gate, within a year, I'm going to have an 8-figure business. And that's where most people just get it backwards.
Mm.
So,
So I'd love to kind of analyze private label from the lens of could it be a side hustle or is it more so
yeah.
something that you view as being full time? So I want to hear your thoughts on how much time and how much cash you think someone should have available before jumping into private label.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I have a video on my YouTube channel about budget. Um, I would definitely
We'll link it down
I
below.
would definitely say that you probably do need a couple $1,000s if you want to have a product that is consistent year round. Now, you could probably get into private label with $1,000 to go towards a product. It may be a very seasonal product, so your sales are going to be limited to maybe a handful of months, but um, you can definitely do private label as a side hustle. And I think, especially for people who may be currently in a 9 to 5 type of career, which there's nothing wrong with, private label, if you have available capital, can really be a nice way to not have to always be outsourcing, whether it's, in stores with retail arbitrage or on websites with online arbitrage, which there's nothing wrong with that either. But um, the amount of time that you're going to spend is going to vary on, how successful you can be, because I know people who will try to source a product, and within, a couple of days, they think they have a product. And then, 3 months later, they're talking about how they invested $4,000 and came out negative. So private label does require some upfront time commitment. It's going to depend on how much time you have to do that. So for me, when I launched our first private label product, I was working 50-ish, 60-ish hours a week. So I only had like 2 hours a week, maybe 3 hours, because I was also trying to do retail arbitrage and selling used books on the side. And so private label was like even farther on the side. But I had a couple hours a week, and it took me close to 6 months to really feel confident in the product that I picked. I had a bunch of ideas within the first 3 months, and looking back, I could probably have worked with any one of those, but some of it was getting over the fear of spending a lot more money with a product than I was used to buying, 99-cent books from Goodwill or $2 items from the clearance aisle at Walmart. So trying to lay out a few $1,000s for one product that I wasn't sure if it was going to work. There was some fear that I had to get over with that. And so it took me maybe a few extra months to really settle down and say, okay, I think this checks all my boxes. I think this works. So someone can get into private label working 9 to 5 and doing it as a side hustle, or even if they're currently selling with e-commerce, devote a little bit of time on the side. And I'm working with several people right now that are in that same boat, where some of them are working 9 to 5, some of them are doing Amazon full time, but they're trying to work on private label on the side. And, it's perfectly fine, because, the biggest limiting factor a lot of times is going to be capital, especially if you really want to, grow quickly.
Yeah. And Phil, I think one of the biggest quotes that came to mind when you were talking is scared money don't make money.
Yeah.
Always got to remember that. But I did actually have a question. So we talked a lot about like what your main goals are when launching a private label product is to, one, not necessarily to make money, but to get your product on page one, right? But
Mhm.
even prior to that, how do you go about identifying a product that you believe would be successful? What type of research goes into that? Is it
Mhm.
all Amazon based, or do you use other tools that help you identify those products?
Yeah. I prefer using Amazon as a starting point, but there are there's a number of tools out there. The most popular ones are Helium 10, Jungle Scout. They have tools that, if you're familiar with Keep a Product Finder, or Tactical Arbitrage, where you can put in a set of filters and say, show me all the products that meet these filters. Those tools will do that for private label products. I prefer sourcing on Amazon mainly. I think the one thing that really intrigues me with private label is that there's so many opportunities that are available, because ultimately what you're doing through private label is you're not necessarily just bringing a product to market, but you're identifying categories or uh, niches that there's an existing demand for. And as an Amazon seller, or if you have access to even a tool as simple as Keepa, you can identify if products are selling. So number one, if you can identify that products in a category are selling, there's a market for it. The next thing is to find the gaps in those markets. And so there's a number of gaps that are simple to identify. Are there products that um, you know people could use with accessories that nobody is selling? Are there, like I said, are there color variations that nobody is offering? I mean, those are fairly simple ones, but if there's a product that's selling well, but there's not a color variation, then that's a gap in the market. Maybe a small gap, but it's a gap. Um, if you look at a product category and you see a lot of customers are complaining about certain features, or even on the flip side, they wish there was things available that don't exist with this product, that's a gap in the market. If there are you know design elements. If it's a product that has design elements, do you think of like a baby stone, or not baby stone, baby milestone blankets, right? You lay your little one on, and now the baby's 3 months, 9 months, 6 months, whatever. You can look at a product like that and say, okay, I see a lot of jungle themes. I see a lot of plant themes. I don't see an under the sea theme, or I don't see an outer space theme. That's a gap in the market. And so that's probably the best way to really approach private label, is you're looking for a market that there's already a demand for, and then you're trying to find gaps in that market.
So what you're saying is we should do taco trays with sriracha bottle holders, is what you're
Yeah,
saying.
it could be.
That's good. All right, Phil. So
Unless Phil already has an ASIN for that.
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah, so you got to do your due diligence. This is kind of the whole front side of private label, just doing your product research and looking at copyright, trademark laws as part of that, or potential patents. So obviously, you're not going to want to use, if you're talking about like a Stanley Cup, you're not going to want to call yours like Stan Lee too, or you're not going to want to use their intellectual property within your listing, but you can also go to USPTO website, uspto.gov, and you can search for existing trademarks, whether it's a word mark on the brand name, what's called a design mark, which is a trademark on the logo, and even existing patents. And there's two kinds of patents. There's a design patent that someone could have on a product, and there's a utility patent. And the design patents usually deal with like when you talk about like a color variation or something aesthetic, and those are easier to get around because you just change the color, or you just change the typeface that you're using. But a utility patent is where it's actually like the actual operation of the product. So if you're looking at a product, like I'll give an example. Somebody sent me an example of a product that was that they were looking at, and it was like an automatic it was for your dogs. You put like a little ball in it, and it automatically launched it out for them to chase. Well, there was a patent on that. And so, I told him I don't know if I would pursue that, because it looks like there's some utility patents on this product. And so, yeah, you might make it with a different color, but the actual function of that product is already patented. So there can be copyright issues that you need to, like I said, do some due diligence for. But for the most part, I would say, someone looking to get into private label, there's going to be some things you may want to avoid, certain categories that can alleviate you having those troubles with potential trademarks. The biggest thing though is just don't use somebody else's intellectual property in your listing. So if I'm going to sell yoga pants, I'm not going to use Nike anywhere in my photos or my copy. That could be potential copyright violations.
All right, Phil. So I got one final question on my end for you. So somebody starting brand new, doing private label, what are the three most important things that they have to be aware of before starting?
That's a good question. So I would say understand it's a long-term game getting into private label. It's not what you generally run into with arbitrage or even sometimes wholesale, where you may be only potentially selling a product for a couple months, a couple weeks maybe, if it's a hot deal. So it's a long-term game. Number two is understand it's going to take more time to get it right than you may anticipate. And the third is you have to be adaptive and able to problem solve if you really want to do private label well, because there's going to be roadblocks throughout the process that can be overcome. But if you're not able to creatively problem solve, you're going to have a hard time.
Nice, nice. Well, Phil, we also, this is new for these podcast episodes we've been doing. We didn't get to do it the first time we interviewed you, but we do something called the Spitfire questions. Okay.
Okay.
So they're just going to be random, related and unrelated questions that you have to just answer instinctually with your gut. Okay.
Okay.
Let me know if you're ready.
I gotta close
It's like
ChatGPT then.
yeah, close it because
Okay.
it can't help you here. And like it's like game style. Okay.
All right.
All right.
Let's
First
do it.
question.
All right.
Private label or arbitrage?
Private label.
All right. What's the first app that you open every morning?
Mm, probably Instagram.
Do you have a mentor?
Yes.
What is your Super Bowl prediction?
Lions all the way.
How long against who?
Ravens.
All right, all right. How long do you think you can do a handstand for?
Am I against the wall or not?
No, straight up,
Ooh.
Goku style, two fingers.
5 seconds.
What is your biggest dream?
My biggest dream is to create financial freedom for my family.
I'm about to start crying. What is your favorite superhero?
Favorite superhero, Leonardo from the Ninja Turtles.
F1 or
He's
NASCAR?
neither.
Let's go. Wolverines or Lions?
Wolverines.
And the very last
Michigan
Spitfire.
Wolverines. National champions. 15-0. 6th team ever to do it. Winningest college football program of all time, in case anybody needs
Oh,
to
you're
know.
not. Yeah, hardball. Let's go. And the
Hardball.
last Spitfire question is going to be, how long do you think Logan's batteries last every day?
Has he had an ice bath or not?
No ice bath, just coffee.
Ooh, probably like 6 hours.
What about with the ice bath?
That's another 2 added 8 hours.
Okay.
2-hour enhancement.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Well, thank you, Phil. It's been a pleasure as always. You're
you.
a genius when it comes to Amazon, and thank you for taking the time out of your day.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Phil, if someone wants to learn more about private label, do you have a place they could go to learn?
Yeah, so I'm primarily on Instagram, filled by Amazon, and there's a link in my bio for a Discord and a program that I recently started working with people who are interested in getting into private label. And really, the goal of the program is to help people find and understand the process for their first product. And I think that's important. You got to start with one before you can build many.
Awesome. Thank you, Phil. Viewers, thanks for watching.
Thank you.